and enjoy the video. Starting this one off, we have the adorable and lovable Shinobu Kocho. Shinobu was born as the youngest daughter within the Kocho household, living alongside her mother, father, and older sister, Kane Kocho. She was raised in a loving and caring household until her parents were slaughtered by demons right before her and her sister's eyes. Just when the demon was about to take the lives of her and her sister as well, they were saved by the Hashira, Gyome, who slayed the demon. Now, more determined as a result of the pain and suffering they endured, Shinobu and Kane both promised to become demon slayers to protect each other, as well as prevent other people from enduring the same losses they had to experience. Eventually, after managing to move a boulder, they convinced Himejima to introduce them to a cultivator. Later in her life, while accompanying her sister Kane on a trip, the sisters encountered a young girl being led away as a slave on a bridge. Intrigued by her, Kane took an interest and decided to take the girl back to the butterfly estate against Shinobu's initial wishes. They eventually purchased the girl, named Kanao Tsuyuri, from her master and trained her within the butterfly estate to become the next Tsugoku. At the age of 14, she became the master of the butterfly estate in Kane's place, since Kane died at age 17. Shinobu coddled the girls of the butterfly estate as if they were her own little sisters. Moving on swiftly, we have the water pillar Tomioka Gyu. Gyu grew up alongside his older sister, Tsutako Tomioka. When he was still a child, his sister sacrificed herself to protect him from the demons. After the death of Tsutako, Gyu tried to tell others that she was killed by a demon. However, he was labeled as mentally ill and was sent away to one of his relatives, a doctor. Gyu ran away during the journey there and almost died on a mountain, but he was rescued and became apprenticed under Urokodaki. Gyu was 13 years old when he met Sabito while training under Senkonji, and they became good friends due to their similar pasts and age. Together, they entered the final selection on Fujikasane Mountain. Gyu was injured after a demon's attack and was saved by Sabito, who defeated nearly every demon on the mountain. However, after the week went by, it was revealed to Gyu that Sabito was the only one who died during their selection. As a result of this, Gyu started developing a doubt for the authenticity of his position after becoming the water Hashira. Next up, the 14-year-old prodigy past, we have Muichiro, the Mist Pillar. Muichiro and his older twin brother, Yuichiro, were born to a woodcutter and his wife. When they were 10 years old, their mother caught a cold which developed into bronchitis, killing her. Their father, who had gone to fetch medicinal herbs for their mother during a storm, ended up falling off a cliff to his death. The two orphaned siblings survived together, with Muichiro taking after the emotional and kind nature of their father. Contrary to him, Yuichiro held a cold and impassive outlook on life. In the following spring, Kagaya Ubuyashiki's wife, Amane Ubuyashiki, arrived to recruit the twins for the Demon Slayer Corps. Muichiro's excitement was opposed by Yuichiro's unwelcoming and rejecting reception. In an outburst, Yuichiro revealed that he blamed the death of their parents on their hard-working and selfless natures, which led to him adopting his cold demeanor, hoping that it would keep himself and his brother alive. In the following summer, when the twins were 11, a demon arrived at their cabin during the night and attacked, resulting in Yuichiro losing his left arm while trying to protect Muichiro. As the demon badgered them for their worthlessness, Muichiro lost himself in a rage and destroyed the demon with all the tools at their disposal and wooden logs. By sunrise, the demon withered into ash, and Muichiro dragged himself back to the house. There, he found Yuichiro near death, praying to the heavens that his brother might survive. He laid next to his brother and grasped his hand as he passed away. Amane and her daughters later arrived to heal a severely wounded Muichiro. Afterwards, Muichiro would lose his memories and leave his old life behind to serve the Demon Slayer Corps. Due to his prominent strength and highly extensive training, he quickly rose to the rank of a Hashira in a mere 2 months. With his memories gone, Muichiro began taking after his older brother's personality and became aloof and indifferent. However, he always felt an incredible anger deep inside him, which drove him to hunt the demons. During this period in the Demon Slayer Corps, he also met Kyojuru Rengoku, who told him that they should do the best they could as fellow Hashira. Additionally, Muichiro became acquainted with his late swordsmith, Tetsuido, who expressed an understanding and empathy towards the boy and his harsh circumstances. Next up, the love pillar Mitsuri Kanroji. Mitsuri was born in the Meiji period among 5 siblings and displayed an unnatural strength at a very young age through her unique muscle composition, shocking even her mother, who herself was known for her strength. She grew up eating much more than the average person and developed an unnatural hair color. a result of eating too much sakura mochi, which led to her being seen as a freak and unable to proceed with a previously intended marriage when she was 17. After this rejection, she dyed her hair black, pretended to be weak, and forced herself to eat a normal amount in an attempt to fit in more with other girls, even if it negatively impeded her well-being. Shortly after making these adjustments to her physical appearance, Mitsuri was approached by a potential partner. However, she became doubtful over whether or not pretending to be a different person would truly work out for her in the end. At some point, her partner left her, or she left him. Mitsuri then encountered Kagaya Ubuyashiki, who told her to reject normalcy and embrace who she was, as her strength was a gift. Because of this encounter, she joined the Demon Slayers and used her skill and ridiculous strength to rise to the status of Hashira. While in the core, she also adopted her idea of finding a man stronger than her to marry. However, this did not work out because, with the exception of her fellow Hashira, she was much stronger and more skilled than the rest of her fellow members. She began working with Kyojuru Rengoku, and, in a battle, she developed her own breath, the Breath of Love. Next up, we have the flamboyant pillar himself, the god of festivities Tengen Uzui. Tengen was born into a family of 9 children within a shinobi clan. 3 of the 9 children died before they even reached 10 years old due to overzealous training. With the remaining 6 of his siblings, they were forced to kill each other on their father's orders without them knowing who they fought, as their heads and faces were covered with masks. Tengen realized his father's trick only after he had killed 2 of his brothers. By the age of 15, 7 of his siblings had already died, leaving only him and his younger brother. As children, his father had forced them to undergo harsh and intensive training as an attempt to save the clan, and influenced them to believe that they needed to dispose innocent lives for their benefit, and solely have a wife as means for producing offspring. As his last remaining brother adopted this mindset and did not feel bad about killing their other siblings, Tengen became appalled and decided to leave the clan permanently. He left the village with his wives without fighting his brother. Uzui's family practices polygamy, so when Tengen turned 15, he must have 3 wives who were chosen by the head of the clan. After leaving the village with his wives, he would later teach them to value themselves before the mission, going against their teachings as kunoichi. For a while after he had left the clan, it became habit for him to say he was going to hell, but he stopped after Makio got angry with him. Hinatsuru cried, and Suma bit him. He anguished over whether he should have exterminated the Uzui clan, but he couldn't bring himself to kill his father or brother. Following the departure from his clan, Tengen and his family searched for Kagaya Ubuyashiki to help fight for the Demon Slayers, and he formally joined. Tengen would later go on to climb the ranks of the core and became the Sound Hashira before Sanemi became a Hashira, and when Kanei Kocho was a member.
Next up, Kyojuro really does not have a backstory. I mean, you could say, he used to train with his father and he was taught by his father. And in regards to that, other than that, he really does not have a backstory, especially like the rest of the Hashira when you compare it to them. But nonetheless, let's get into the backstory of Kyojuro. When Kyojuro was born, he was born to a loving mother and a father who both cared for him tremendously. I mean, being the son and the next in line to inherit the title of the Flame Hashira, you could expect that there was a lot of pressure on the young man. But nonetheless, he would rise up to the challenge and learn from his father and absorb as much as he can from him. But sadly, after the passing of his mother, his father would fall into a deep despair, not wanting to teach Kyojuro and often, bad-mouthing him and things as such. But Kyojuro did not let this affect him at all. In fact, it had the opposite effect on him. Kyojuro wanted to increase his swordsmanship and just prove to himself and really be a role model for his younger little brother Shinjiro that, no matter what you do, you could become anything that you set your mind to, even if your parents or those above you of power do not care. So that's exactly what Kyojuro did. He trained hard and rigorously until he rose to the rank of Hashira. By the way, let me know if you guys are interested in a video regarding the Kaiden of Kyojuro. I think it's a really interesting Kaiden, and if you haven't read it, you should definitely so. Moving on, next we have Obanai. Now Obanai's backstory has got to be, in my opinion, one of the most misfortunate backstories in the entire series. Obanai was born into a clan of thieves who lived off an excessive amount of riches that had been stolen from those who had been killed by the demon demon that they had worshipped. This demon took the form of a woman with a snake-like lower body and face, and had a great taste for newborn babies, which is what the family sacrificed her in exchange for their riches. As the first boy born into the family for over 370 years, Obanai lived out all of his days locked in a wooden cage, being spoiled by his family. The serpent demon also took a liking to Obanai since he was a rare male child with heterochromia, and would spend the night slithering around his cage in the dark and staring at him, which frightened Obanai, of course, as you can imagine, so much that he couldn't sleep. When Obanai turned 12, Obanai was finally allowed to leave his cell for the first time in his entire life. He was taken into a room that appeared to be an expensive shrine, and was finally put face to face with the serpent demon for the first time, immediately causing him to shake in fear and terror at the demon's appearance and the realization that this was the very same thing slithering in his room, staring at him every night of his life. The demon remarked that Obanai was very small and wondered to herself if she should wait to eat him until he was a little bigger. Deciding that she would, she organized his mouth to be cut wider all the way to his ears to match hers due to her liking him. When Obanai was back to his cell, his wound now covered by a bandage, he would begin only to think of escape and survival upon realizing his fate. He began to scratch away at the lattice of his cell with a stolen hairpin he took from one of his relatives. Day by day, he would be in a constant state of worry and fear, and shaking in terror at the possibility of what would happen if the snake demon or his family would discover his attempt at freedom. The only being he could trust was a small snake that had somehow strayed into his cage and became his only friend. And of course, we know that pet today as Kaburomaru. After a while of doing this, Obanai finally managed to completely remove a wooden chunk of his bars and escape into the night as fast as he could. As he ran, the serpent demon began to pursue him, almost catching up to him and killing him before the flame Hashira, at the time most likely Kyojiro's father, by chance came to his rescue. Because of Obanai's escape, the serpent demon had killed all 50 of his relatives, and the only survivor member of his bloodline was his older cousin, who also had been saved by the Hashira. When they were reunited, however, Obanai's cousin rejected him and began to violently attack and claw at him due to her blaming Obanai for their family's deaths at the hands of the demons. She then proceeds to scream at him and tells him that he should have just died and accepted his fate, and none of this would happen if he just had done so. Due to these harsh words from his cousin and his own sense of loathing and guilty for having been even born into such a family, Obanai joined the Demon Slayer Corps and decided to turn all his rage onto whatever demons he could find, figuring out that he'd feel like a better person if he risked his life for the sake of others, and this would somehow ease his guilt. And of course, as we know, sometime in this time period, Obanai would meet Misuri. We were told that, these two's meetings was love at first sight. When Obanai saw Misuri for the first time, he was completely dazzled and shocked. He thought to himself, how could a perfect being and a beautiful person like this exist? But as we know, my boy couldn't shoot his shot. It's a shame, but it's whatever. Hey, all we know is that the two's conversations were incredible. Moving on, next we have the wind pillar Senemi Shinizukawa. Senemi's past was, when you really look at it, is filled with major sadness after sadness. Senemi was the oldest son of 7 children and lived with both of his parents. Their father was abusive, constantly lashing out at the children and their mother, until one day he was stabbed and killed by someone who had a grudge against him. One day, Senemi's mother failed to return home, so Senemi left to search for her. At some point, he found her and realized she became a demon, but he couldn't stop her from returning home and killing 5 of his siblings. Just before, however, she could kill Kenya, Senemi tackles her through the window to the streets below with a knife in hand. In the ensuing fight, she gave him the 2 large scars across his face, and his Morochi blood, which disorients demons and makes him act intoxicated, gave him an opening to cut her down. When Kenya runs into the street to find a doctor for his grievously injured siblings, he finds Senemi with their mother lying dead at his feet. Panicking and not knowing that the quote-unquote wolf that attacked them earlier was their demonified mother, Kenya screams and accuses Senemi of murdering her. Senemi is still in complete and utter shock, becomes colorblind as their mother dissolved into the sunlight. After that, Senemi abandoned Kenya and began to hunt demons in his own with suicidal devotion. While wandering one day the land hunting demons, he eventually met a legitimate demon slayer named Masachika Kumeno, who helped him and introduced him to a proper trainer. Upon completing his training, the 2 of them teamed up to defeat the then lower rank one of the 12 Kizuki. However, Kumeno lost his life in the battle, and the only one who was remaining and got promoted to the rank of Hashira was Sanemi. Bitter of Kumeno's death, Sanemi takes all his anger out on Kaguya, accusing him of happily giving orders from above while the demon slayers bleed and die for his cause. To his surprise, Kaguya takes the criticism gracefully before mentioning Kumeno by name. Kanai then goes on to inform Sanemi that Master Kaguya has memorized the names and backgrounds of every single demon slayer who has died since he became leader. This discovery and reading Kumeno's will given to him by Kaguya gives Sanemi a newfound respect for Kaguya. During this time, Sanemi would get very close with Kanai, developing some sort of a crush to her. Of course, this kinda makes sense, you know, when you look at Sanemi as a character and having all the scars that he has. Of course, the guy would need a lot of treatments. So where does he go to get treatment, you may ask? Well, of course, that is none other than the doctor Kanai to get his wounds treated. So he would form some sort of a crush on Kanai. Now, what we do know is that Sanemi definitely did like Kanai, but we don't know, sadly, if Kanai felt the same way. So let's just hope that she did. Come on, we can live in a happy period, right? But yeah, I'm shipping those two. Are you guys shipping them? Come on, there's no way I'm the only one who wished that the two got together. Next up, we have easily the strongest pillar by far, and that is none other than Father Gyome. Before Gyome was a demon slayer and Hashira, he lived with 9 children who were orphans and raised them in a temple. The area was well known for demon attacks, so Gyome had always burnt wisteria incense to ward off any demons. One night, one of the 9 children disobeyed the temple rules and traveled beyond its borders. That kid, by the way, who is Kaikaku, the same Kaikaku that trained with Senetsu. I know, right? Kinda nuts. Kaikaku is immediately attacked by a demon, and in order to save his own life, he tells the demon to eat the other children as well as Kyome. After night fell, the child invited the demon into the temple after putting out the wisteria incense. And the demon comes in and 4 children were immediately killed by the demon. And the remaining children insisted on escaping the temple, ignoring Kyome's wishes to stay inside the temple. His frail stature and blindness fueled the distrust the children had in Kyome's ability to protect them, which led them to abandon him and ultimately getting killed by the demon themselves. In the end, only one child, the youngest Sayo, had listened and stayed behind in fear of the demon. Though it is unknown how the exchange went down, Kyome had been cut across the forehead by the demon, but soon would absolutely destroy the demon mercilessly with his bare hands, and he awakened some sort of a frightening amount of power. He went on and beat the demon's head until the sun came up. Soon after morning came, people came to the scene rushing and to help out, but due to a misunderstanding with Sayo saying that man is a monster, he killed everyone, the villagers thought she meant Kyome and not the demon. Kyome would later be imprisoned and charged with the murder of 7 children, but Kake Obiyashiki intervened and released him before he would have been executed for his false crimes. Later on, Kyome became a demon slayer, and after only 2 months of training, he would become the Stone Hashira. Now, it is also very important to note that Kyome would be the one to save Shinobu and Kanai from a demon after their family had been slaughtered. So yeah, Kyome is a very cool character indeed. Which of these past was your favorite? For me, honestly, it's got to be Tengen Usubi. I mean, that guy is just so interesting, from having 3 different wives to being a freaking shinobi. Like, come on, he easily has got to have the most interesting character and past within the entire story, for me at least. Definitely let me know what you guys think and subscribe to the channel if you have not done so. That being said, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.